Is there a new investigation into the government's handling of UAP? We've got that and a lot more to talk about. It's time for another UFO News Roundup, so get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. News: a sweeping criminal investigation into the USG's handling of UAP may be underway. On F521, IG announces evaluation. On 623, Black Vault's 5 most recent UAP-related FOIA requests were denied, citing possible interference with law enforcement investigations or prosecutions. Very interesting. So, yeah, definitely hinting that there is some investigation going on. The IG conveniently left the word investigation off of his reply letter to Tim Burchett and Anna Polina Luna Moskowitz and others when they were trying to get the skiff with David Grush. So, so there does seem to be an investigation going on. I believe Ross Coulthart also talked about that. And so this is further confirmation of that. Inspector General memorandum for distribution. We plan to begin the subject evaluation on May 2021. The objective of this evaluation is to determine the extent to which the DoD has taken actions regarding UAP. We may revise the objective as the evaluation proceeds, and we will consider suggestions from management for additional revised objectives. We'll perform the evaluation at the offices, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, very interesting. That's from Robert Randolph R. Stone, Assistant Inspector General for Evaluations, Space Intelligence, Engineering, and Oversight. Very interesting, guys. So, yeah, the Inspector General is seemingly investigating UFOs, or at least the government's response to UFOs. And I'm thinking, in particular of the retaliation against David Grush and others, since that is what sparked all this, right? So, but maybe that will lead down even more rabbit holes. I sure hope so. The IG is not transparent at all. I wish they were, but at least they seem to be somewhat neutral on this. They did allow David Grush's information to come out, at least. They didn't try to cover it up or block him from speaking. So, but they're also not super transparent, and they're not seemingly like a huge advocate of UFO disclosure, or, at least that is, what we can see from the outside. Maybe they're huge advocates of disclosure, and they are allowing what they can. So, so there you go. The IG is investigating this stuff, and here's further confirmation that that is the case. Another news, a few weeks ago, early October 2nd, 2 more BASS OSAP documents emerge. This is really interesting. The documents themselves aren't that interesting, I'll be honest, and I'm not even going to go over them. I've gone over them, but they're really not that exciting. I have acquired 2 additional BASS OSAP documents, which are not listed in the Lakatsky et al. Appendix. 1 Capella Data Warehouse, Pilots Database Completion Survey. 2 Canada Database Information. And so I'll link to this, and you can go through the documents themselves. But it's really encouraging to see that more BASS stuff is coming out, more OSAP stuff is coming out. If you don't know OSAP, it's the precursor program to ATIP, maybe even a parallel program, or ATIP emerged out of OSAP one way or another. And OSAP was the government's program that was, I think they got $22 million in funding. In the New York Times article, it was incorrectly attributed to ATIP. They were saying that ATIP received that funding. They may have received some funding, but it was OSAP that received the $22 million over the course of a couple of years, I think. They investigated Skinwalker Ranch in addition to other stuff. And there has been a lid of secrecy over a lot of what they studied, and very encouraged that more documents, not super interesting documents, but some documents are coming out. And I can't wait to see more. If you've followed the TV show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, you'll see there's hints that the Bigelow team, BASS, may have been doing some stuff there that, maybe covering up caves and stuff. We don't really know. But, there do seem to be some secrets there that maybe the Bigelow team knows and was working with, and that they just can't reveal for whatever reason, or won't reveal for whatever reason. So as much as I love Bob Bigelow, I would love this secrecy to end and for us to figure out what Bass and Ostap were doing there. If it was something particularly juicy and important to the study of that place and of the phenomenon in general, I think we need to know. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And here are some thoughts from Eric Burleson on the David Grush light skiff that he and other Congress people were treated to, last week. So, we've heard comments from Burchett and Luna and others about what they saw. Well, those guys were on board the UFO train. Eric Burleson is not. So let's find out from his comments if he was persuaded by anything that he saw at that skiff to change his opinion. Asked if some degree of answers were provided based on what was alleged, Burleson replied, "Some degree, and it's really frustrating because I can't say what was said, but I'll just say my viewpoint about the UAP phenomenon has not changed. My worldview of what we're seeing, what we're experiencing, is that it's likely U.S. experimental, whether it's from the private sector or being done through a black operation within the DoD or energy." Yeah, and the Department of Energy comes up a lot in this. They seem to be a big player in all of this. Jacques Vallée has talked about that in the Lance Corporal Weigand case that happened in Peru, I think in the 90s. When he came across that UFO, he was arrested by people that he believes were, they were outright wearing Department of Energy emblems. U.S. Department of Energy in Peru trying to cover up UFO stuff and working with UFO stuff. Performing crash retrievals, etc. So so they're a huge part of this, so that wouldn't surprise me at all. He also commented, Burleson, I'll just say this, UFOs are not keeping me up at night. They weren't before, and after this meeting, they weren't. They aren't now. I told a constituent that what keeps me up at night is the national debt, the war in Ukraine, the war in Israel, and the potential for World War III. And so there's nothing that shattered my worldview today. Well, then that was a failure of the skiff. That's all I can say, because if the David Grush information was presented in full, even just what we know, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff we don't know, but if what he has revealed in Congress and to Ross Coulthart about there being alien bodies, alien ships, UFO crash retrievals and reverse engineering, surely that would have shattered the worldview of a skeptic. So yeah, there's going to be at least one more skiff. Tim Burchett doesn't seem optimistic on the whole skiff thing anymore, but hopefully they can actually get David in a skiff with these guys and everybody can get the clearances they need. But that's assuming that they can overcome the resistance and the cover-up to get to that point. So, we'll see if that happens. We don't know all the people that attended the skiff, but John Greenwald is saying that he believes one of them was the Honorable Robert P. Storch, Department of Defense Inspector General. Very interesting. So there's a line of people going up the stairs to the David Grush light skiff. And here's Mike Colangelo talking about an article from the Daily Mail. FBI agents visit scientists building a flying saucer at Falcon Space Lab in New Jersey and reveal they are part of X-Files-like government UFO investigation. The FBI agents were part of an X-Files-like government UFO investigation. It's a over 10-minute long video, so I'm just going to play some highlights from it. But let's take a listen. This is really, really interesting. The mummy is called Icarda, and he or she, I guess, has not been seen before by the public. So this is the world premiere of Edgarda. There's some music playing over part of the video, so I can't show that part. But the lady who's narrating this says that a lot of these mummies are actually acquired by tomb raiders, and they go to the highest bidder, and they generally find their way into the hands of collectors. I'm not sure how they got their hands on this particular specimen, or if they had to pay for it, or if it was donated in some way. She hasn't yet provided any details on that, I don't believe. But yeah, let's give a listen.
The mummy at Garda is indeed special. The head is tilted slightly, and depending on the angle, it looks as if the creature suffered before its death. Of course, I'm not the only one who would like to know what caused the death of the tridactyls and whether they all died around the same time. Well, of course, if they were once in fact living, breathing beings. The mummy is approximately 60 centimeters long and has the typical three-fingered hands and the three-toed feet. The abdominal area is elevated, so it can be assumed that Edgarda also has eggs in her body. What we will be particularly interested in today are the three implants on the chest and in the right shoulder area. The sampling took much longer than this video suggests. We were busy for hours, including the subsequent evaluation of the data we received. The size of the sample has been determined beforehand. Then the fine sawing work begins. After the sample can finally be carefully removed, it is placed in the sterile transport container, which is sealed and labeled accordingly. But you will notice that the thing has its own charm. On the one hand, due to its size, which corresponds approximately to human dimensions and looks like a part of the mummy Maria, and on the other hand, because we will be able to see the bone structures clearly because of some X-rays, and also compare them. So this is the forearm in all its glory, and it looks like it was intentionally severed to mummify it separately, as diatomaceous earth was also carefully applied around the elbow joint. The necessary analysis to determine whether this is really the case still needs to be carried out. As with the three-fingered hands of the mummy Maria, we are also dealing with 5 phalanges per finger. We now see the fingertips of the hand, on which you can clearly see fingerprints. We haven't been able to find them on the small mummies yet, but here they can be seen clearly. Contrary to initial claims by ufologists, the fingerprints are certainly similar to those of humans, and they probably serve the same purpose, namely that of a fine, sensitive sense of touch. On the screen we see the last phalanx with a nail, which was then measured, and the result was a length of 18 millimeters. The penultimate phalanx can also be seen, the maximum length of which is 22 millimeters. Later, analysis of the samples reveals the presence of mainly gold, silver and copper, which is not unusual as these metals had been used in metalworking by ancient coastal cultures since the period around the birth of Christ.
So there you go. There is the study that is being done on this new body recovered by a tomb robber, apparently. And here is the team of doctors that is studying the specimen. I can't wait to see what they find, what their ultimate determinations are. Are they going to present their findings to the UFO, the Mexican UFO hearing that's soon going to happen? It seems like we will probably get more about the tridactyl mummies at the next UFO hearing in Mexico. At first, there was a lot of pushback against those bodies, and hey, I was one of them. I totally bought the debunking video, so I totally get that. But I wonder if in the next hearing they're going to double down on these bodies. I think this is critically important. This could be the silver bullet as far as UFO disclosure goes. It really could. If more eyes get on this, if this research becomes verified and confirmed and accepted in a more mainstream scientific way, especially if it goes into, I don't want to it sounds bad, but obviously a lot of us would be more comfortable if somebody like Gary Nolan or Avi Loeb were studying this. And, if more of a mainstream Western or American science were on this. But we have really good doctors on this right now, south of the border. I believe one of the doctors that studied it originally and that presented his findings at the first Mexican UFO hearing was like a lieutenant colonel. We had the director of the hospital himself overseeing the CAT scan of that one specimen, determining that it was indeed one intact specimen, not a cobbled together doll built from various human body parts and other body parts. So, the evidence is very strong, I think, that these are non-human bodies. That seems to be what we're looking at, guys. They've got scaly skin. Some of them have eggs. The bodies don't make a lot of sense. They, based on what we're seeing, they don't seem to be articulated very well. We don't know if they could walk or do things. Maybe they could. Maybe we just haven't reconstructed them properly or analyzing them properly. But yeah, they have different. Some of their bones have different densities, which is weird. It almost seems like sometimes they may have replaced bones with other bones within their own lifetime. And when they needed to, they would put an implant in. The one mummy had a wound from a large cat, maybe a jaguar or a bobcat or something like that. That inflicted a serious wound on the sternum of one. I believe that was one of the females that had eggs, and there was a metal implant that was put on her sternum as a measure to help her bones. So really, really interesting how they seem to have put on implants, how they may have swapped out bones, giving them different densities potentially. It's early days yet. We don't really even know what we're dealing with here, but it's fascinating. This needs to become accepted by the mainstream scientific community in order for this to be really accepted into, permeate throughout the public sphere and the public consciousness. But yeah, guys, we could be looking at UFO disclosure with these bodies. So I hope to hear a lot more about them at the next UFO Mexican hearing coming up very shortly. So I'm very excited about that.